When we got to my father-in-law's house after the wedding, my father-in-law was very happy to see me, and why not? I was no less beautiful. Oh, I didn't mention my house was in Dhaka City. I used to study at Shubha Dhaka University, and that's where I met him. Whatever happy marriage, my father-in-law also loved me a lot. I also loved Shubha more than my January. I never let Shubha go away from me, and he used to call me crazy. Then I pretended to cry until Shubha broke my anger by giving me a kiss. Shubha loved me more than his life. We had sex almost every night. I don't remember ever asking him for sex. I just wanted to be by his side, and that was my happiness. Shubha used to caress me a lot during sex. I kept my eyes closed. I didn't say anything. Sometimes during sex, I would look at his eyes and burst out laughing. Then he would squeeze my eyes. After 5 months, I realized I was pregnant. I told Shubha that he is very happy. Also my father-in-law. By saying this, I think I made a mistake, Shubha. Why do I know that Shubha had sex with me 3 times that night? I asked why so much today. He said today I am very happy. I said that's why you're giving me so much trouble. He just laughed. Then Prajant did not accept our relationship from my house. It was a beautiful day when I married the love of my life, Shubha. Our love story was simple but full of depth. We had met while studying at Dhaka University, and over time, our connection grew stronger. My family initially did not approve of our relationship, and our marriage was met with resistance. They did not understand the love we shared, and it hurt me to see them struggle to accept our bond. After our wedding, we moved to Shubha's family home. My father-in-law was kind, but the absence of my mother-in-law, who had passed away years ago, left a lingering emptiness in the house. Shubha and I were so deeply in love, and even though there were challenges, I felt happiness in his presence every single day. He adored me, and I loved him more than anything in the world. But life has a way of surprising us. A few months into our marriage, something changed, and my heart was shattered. My husband, Shubha, suddenly passed away. It was a loss that I couldn't comprehend, and I felt like the world had turned upside down. My heart ached with the absence of his love and presence, and I was left feeling lost and alone. For a while, my father-in-law kept his distance. The grief of losing his son was too much for him, and we both mourned in silence, each lost in our own sorrow. But over time, something shifted. My father-in-law, who had once been so distant, began to see me not just as a daughter-in-law but as someone who had truly loved his son. He realized the depth of the love Shubha and I had shared, and he began to accept me once again. The days that followed were difficult, but slowly, my father-in-law became a pillar of support. We shared memories of Shubha, and our bond grew stronger. While the pain of losing Shubha would never go away, I found solace in the understanding and love of my father-in-law. Together, we found healing, and he welcomed me into his heart as his own daughter. Though love had not been accepted by my family at first, and tragedy had tested my strength, in the end, it was love and time that brought acceptance. I will always carry Shubha in my heart, but now, I am also grateful for the love and understanding that have slowly blossomed in the family I married into. I know, he said softly, but I think it's time we decide if we're ready for whatever comes next. We can't keep living like this. It's either we stand up to our families, or we go our separate ways before it destroys everything. His words hit me hard. Could we really face the world and our families with open hearts, knowing that everything might fall apart? Could we handle the consequences if they were too great? That night, I lay awake, my mind racing with doubt and fear. I loved Arif more than I had ever loved anyone, but the future was so uncertain. Every decision felt like a crossroads, one that could change our lives forever. The next day, Arif and I met at our usual spot by the river. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow across the water. I could feel the weight of our unspoken thoughts hanging in the air between us. Arif, I said, my voice trembling, do you think we're strong enough to face this? To stand up to everyone, no matter what they say? He reached for my hand, his grip strong and reassuring. Lena, I don't know. But what I do know is that I don't want to live my life without you. I'm not afraid of what might come. As long as we're together. His words gave me the strength I needed to keep going. I realized then that love wasn't about being fearless. It was about facing fear together and finding the courage to keep moving forward despite it. The next few days passed in a blur of planning, of talking with each other, and trying to find the courage to confront the next step. We both knew that the time had come to face the rest of our families, not in whispers or behind closed doors, but openly, with the truth in our hearts. On the day we decided to have the final conversation, Arif and I met at my house. It felt like the calm before the storm. We were about to lay everything on the table, ready to face whatever would come after. My parents were the first to arrive. Their faces were tight, but there was something different in their eyes. I couldn't read it, but I knew that they had been thinking deeply about everything. Then, Arif's family came, and the tension in the room became almost tangible. It was clear that we were all walking into this together, but no one knew how it would end. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, and turned to face everyone. We've been avoiding the truth for too long, I said, my voice trembling but steady. Arif and I are in love. And we've decided that no matter what, we're going to be together. There was a long pause, the silence thick with emotion. My mother's face softened, but she remained silent. My father looked at me, his eyes full of concern. Arif's mother, on the other hand, was struggling to hold back tears. Finally, my father spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Lena, we love you. We always will. But this is difficult. I won't pretend I understand, and I don't know how the rest of the family will react. But you're our daughter, and no matter what, we will always be here for you. Arif's father sighed, rubbing his temples. I never imagined this would happen, he muttered. But I can see how much you care for each other. We'll need time, but we'll try to accept this. It wasn't the full acceptance we had hoped for, but it was a step forward. The road ahead was still uncertain, but at least we weren't completely alone in this. Our families were struggling, yes, but they weren't rejecting us entirely. As the conversation continued, the air in the room slowly shifted. It was clear that, while the road ahead would be difficult, there was space for us to grow, to work through the challenges together. When everyone left, Arif and I stood in the empty house, the weight of the conversation still hanging over us. We didn't know what would happen next. But in that moment, I realized that the hardest part was already over. We had chosen each other, and no matter the outcome, that was something worth fighting for. The weeks that followed felt like a slow but steady climb. Our families, though still hesitant, began to accept our love, one small step at a time. There were no grand declarations of approval, no promises that everything would be easy, but there was an understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. We were no longer hiding in the shadows. We had taken our place in the light, together. As for Arif and me, we knew the journey ahead wouldn't be without challenges. There would be moments of doubt, times when the weight of our love would feel like too much. But we had crossed the hardest part, the moment of truth, and that made all the difference. Every time I looked at Arif, I saw not just my cousin, but the person I had chosen, the person who had chosen me, despite all the obstacles.